Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look at the Australian judiciary.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. We've got the book, the judge, the judiciary, and the court as our main guide, plus other academic work and, perspectives from inside the system.
Right, and our mission really is to pull out the key stuff. How does the Australian judicial system actually work? What makes it tick?
And one of the first sort of key ideas is that the court isn't just the individual judges you might see.
Hmm.
It's the whole judiciary working together, and the court as this big institution, built on constitutional foundations.
Okay, so to make it clear for everyone, we're kind of looking through three lenses.
Exactly. The individual judge what they do, their choices,
Hmm.
then the collective, the judges as a group, how they interact.
Right, the team aspect.
And finally, the institution, the court itself, its rules, its values, its place in the system.
Got it. So three levels interacting.
Yeah, precisely. They all shape each other. It's quite interconnected.
Okay, let's dive into the individual judge first. It sounds like they bring more than just legal knowledge to the bench.
Oh, absolutely. Think about their daily decisions, how they interpret a law, manage their courtroom, use their discretion where the law allows. That all has a huge impact.
And there's the oath they take too, right? That formal commitment.
Yes, that's really important. What's the core promise there?
Well, drawing from the High Court Act, it's about serving diligently, doing right by everyone according to law, without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and, crucially, with independence and impartiality.
That last bit, independence and impartiality, that's huge. We'll definitely keep coming back to that. It's like a bedrock principle.
And, it's really interesting how much academic work actually goes into studying individual judges, analyzing their decisions, their methods.
Yeah, and that often gets into that whole debate, legalism versus activism.
Ah, right. Legalism being that sort of strict by-the-book approach, often seen in constitutional law here.
Exactly. And activism being, well, the label sometimes used when judges seem to bring broader societal values into their reasoning more openly.
It's a tricky label, though, isn't it? Activism.
Very tricky. Tanya Joseph argues, quite persuasively, I think, that the term is often just vague, politically loaded, and doesn't really help us understand what judges are actually doing.
Right. It can shut down proper discussion.
Precisely. It's often used more as a criticism than a description.
So beyond just the rulings, there's research looking at the actual experience of being a judge. Like, what's it like day to day?
Yeah, socio-legal studies look into that, the pressures, the realities of the job today. Then you have life writing, like judicial biographies, giving you insights into their personal journeys and impact.
Fascinating.
And sometimes, though less common, political legal studies try to unpack, any political dimensions or influences over time.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, from the individual to the collective, the judiciary as a group. How important is that internal dynamic?
Incredibly important. That collegiate environment, how judges on the same court interact, can be a huge source of support, but also, well, friction sometimes.
Depends on the court, the personalities.
Definitely. And collegiality, it's not just about everyone agreeing all the time. That's a key point from the research.
Right, it's more nuanced.
Much more. It's about civility, mutual respect, being able to disagree constructively, without it getting personal.
Justice Kiefel spoke about this, didn't she?
She did. She sees collegiality as essential, not just for churning out joint judgments, which is practical, but also for the intellectual richness that comes from debating complex issues together, hashing things out, even if you end up disagreeing.
So what kinds of things actually shape collegiality on a court? Is it just personalities?
Personalities play a part, for sure, but institutional factors are big too. Things like caseload pressure, how well-resourced the court is.
Makes sense.
Practices like judicial retreats or conferences where they actually interact outside the courtroom. Even judgment writing policies like the High Court encouraging joint opinions that shapes how they work together.
And what about when they do disagree? Dissent seems pretty vital.
Oh, absolutely vital. Justice Kiefel, again, she's talked about the courage it takes to dissent, but also the importance of doing it decorously, respectfully.
So it airs different legal viewpoints.
Yeah.
Keeps the law dynamic.
Exactly. It can be crucial for how the law develops down the track. Interestingly, though, the High Court lately has often used this very minimalist, largely propositional style in its reasons. More concise, maybe less room for broad philosophical debate within the judgment itself.
Okay, third lens time. The court as an institution. more than just the people.
Right. It's an institution grounded in constitutional values, and those values really dictate how judges and the judiciary should function.
And the separation of powers must be central here, especially federally.
Absolutely. That relatively clear federal separation is designed precisely to protect judicial independence and impartiality from the political branches.
And even though states and territories might not have the exact same formal structure,
Their courts are part of that overall federal judicial structure, so they effectively have to meet similar requirements. Independence, impartiality, fairness, those
Yeah.
core things.
so can we list those core institutional requirements? What defines the court?
Okay, so independence, definitely. Impartiality, we keep saying it. Appropriate judicial discretion, they need space to judge without political interference.
Uh-huh.
Fair process is non-negotiable. And that crucial supervisory role, the High Court and state Supreme Courts being able to review government actions, keep them in check. That power is key.
And academics spend a lot of time analyzing these institutional aspects.
Oh, yes. Lots of scholarship on what the courts must do, what limits there are, and also looking at the bigger picture, how judges get appointed, how performance is overseen.
You know, it strikes me that judging isn't just about settling fights. It's bigger than that.
Absolutely. It's this unique blend of resolving specific disputes and shaping the broader rules of society. Judges clarify laws, make sure they're applied consistently.
Keep a system coherent.
Exactly. They maintain coherence.
So when they make rulings, are they making law? Like politicians do?
Yes and no. It's different. Judicial lawmaking happens case by case, looking backwards at a specific dispute.
Right, it's retrospective.
And it's constrained by legal method, precedent. It's not just making rules out of thin air. It's usually incremental, building on what's already there.
But still, because it's public, formal, written down, it sets a standard.
Precisely. Applying abstract principles to real facts is establishing the rule for that situation. That's how common law develops. But there's always that tension
Between what?
between needing clear, predictable rules so people know where they stand and needing flexibility to get a just outcome in a specific, messy human situation. It's a constant balancing act.
And all of this relies heavily on public confidence, doesn't it? Trust in the system.
Hugely. Public trust in institutions like the judiciary is vital. That's why there's that convention. The political branches generally don't attack judges personally.
They can criticize a judgment.
Yeah, critique the reasoning, the outcome. But attacking the judge's integrity, that's generally off limits, except through formal processes like in Parliament. It helps protect that independence.
Okay, let's pivot now to some of the hot topics, the challenges facing the judiciary today. Independence keeps coming up.
It does. You had Justice Hayden's speeches a while back. Threats to judicial independence, the enemy within.
Right, that caused quite a stir.
It really did. Sparked debate within the legal world about what the judicial role even is or should be. Different judges have different views.
And that wasn't the only controversy involving Justice Hayden recently.
No, unfortunately not. The 2020 investigation finding the sexual harassment complaints against him during his high court time were substantiated. That was significant.
And Chief Justice Kiefel's apology afterwards.
Yes, a very direct apology. It raised serious questions about culture and accountability right at the top.
We've also seen politicians criticizing court decisions quite publicly. That Victorian terrorism sentencing case comes to mind.
Yeah, 2017, federal ministers publicly slammed the sentences. The Victorian Chief Justice actually convened a hearing to consider contempt of court.
Wow.
It really highlighted that tension. Where is the line between legitimate public accountability or commentary and an attack that undermines judicial independence? It's a tough one.
Let's talk about the Chief Justice role specifically. It sounds like a unique pressure cooker.
It really is. They're a judge, yes, but also a top administrator, a public face for the judiciary.
Lots of
Hats. And there's that framework looking at values like independence, impartiality, accountability, transparency.
Right. Appleby and Roberts use that Devlin and Dodek model. You can analyze how a Chief Justice navigates relationships with the profession, the public, media, academics trying to uphold all those values.
And people won't always agree on how they're doing. Exactly. What one person sees as defending independence, another might see differently. And different Chief Justices have different leadership styles, obviously. Danelsky's typologies offer some ways to think about those styles.
Okay. Another huge issue, diversity, or the lack of it. Why is more diversity on the bench so important?
Well, several reasons. Simple fairness, equality of opportunity, for one.
Yeah.
But also A more diverse bench might make better decisions, bringing different perspectives, life experiences to the table.
Widens the talent pool, too, presumably.
Definitely. And crucially, it can boost public trust if the judiciary actually looks more like the community it serves.
And diversity isn't just gender or race.
Right.
We need to think broader.
Absolutely. Gender, race, geography, professional background, those are common. But what about disability, indigenous identity? Where someone was born, language is spoken, census data gives us clues about the wider population.
But we don't actually have great stats on all of that for judges, do we?
Generally, no. Gender data is getting better, but for other aspects, it's patchy. Some research has used anonymized census data from judges, which gave some interesting comparisons on things like marital status or religion.
So what's being done, or what could be done, to improve diversity?
People talk about the judicial pipeline supporting diverse talent earlier in their careers, so they're in the running later.
Makes sense.
Re-examining selection processes, are there hidden barriers? Creating court environments where diversity is genuinely valued, and judicial education, making sure judges understand diverse experiences.
Wasn't there an attempt at federal reform a while back?
Yeah, the Labor government between 2008 and 2013 tried to bring in reforms specifically aimed at boosting diversity in appointments.
Right. Okay, let's talk tech. It's everywhere. How's it affecting the courts?
Well, they're already using lots e-filing, video links for witnesses or hearings, online dispute resolution for smaller matters, big case management systems.
Standard efficiency stuff. But what about AI? Artificial intelligence.
That's where the big debate is. Could AI help make decisions? Some say yes, it'll be more efficient, maybe even fairer.
But others are worried.
Very worried. Risks of bias baked into the algorithms, the black box problem. How do you know why the AI decided that way? Accountability issues. Who's responsible if it gets it wrong?
How could this automation trend impact those core judicial values we keep mentioning?
Well, transparency and accountability are challenged by that black box issue. Judicial reasoning is usually explained in words, right? AI doesn't always do that easily.
Independence.
Concerns about relying on systems built by private tech companies. Impartiality. Big worries about bias in the training data reflecting historical inequality.
Right, garbage in, garbage out.
Kind of. And even diversity. Could AI be used to analyze judges' personal traits? That's controversial. And efficiency gains have to be weighed against impacts on fairness and access to justice. It's complex.
Moving to something maybe less obvious, emotion. Does emotion have a place in judging?
It absolutely does. Even if judges strive for impartiality, there's reflexivity, being aware of your own and others' emotions. There are emotion management techniques judges use constantly.
Like keeping calm.
Exactly. Maintaining that calm demeanor, maybe taking a break if things get heated, using self-talk. There are also backgrounded emotions, pride in the role, loyalty, satisfaction that shape their work.
So emotion can be a resource.
Sometimes, yes, or something to be carefully managed. Managing that boundary between personal feelings and the judicial role is crucial for authority and impartiality.
Let's circle back to judicial activism. We said it was loaded, especially in public debate.
Very much so. It really took off in Australia after the Moreau decision, often used by politicians or commentators, usually critically, implying judges are overreaching, pushing an agenda.
Typically a progressive agenda in those critiques.
Often, yeah, the unelected judges argument.
But academics and many judges see it differently.
Most academics avoid the term because it's so political. Some judges have tried to encourage more sort of specific and less insulting public criticism of decisions. But then you have figures like Dyson Hayden, who was a very prominent user of the activism critique himself.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into collegiality again. You mentioned it's not just compromise.
Right. Real collegiality allows for robust, respectful disagreement. That actually makes the decision-making richer, arguably. Judge Edwards called it a common interest in getting the law right.
But it's not always some perfect ideal.
No, critics point out it can sometimes mask conformity or pressure. Good working relationships help navigate those tough conversations, but every court's dynamic is unique, really idiosyncratic.
What about individual judicial style? Beyond just legal reasoning, how they write, how they present.
Oh yeah, that's a whole area. It's shaped by so much background, education, values, who they think they're writing for, the case itself, court norms.
So Frank Kiddo thought writing judgments actually forced clearer thinking.
He did. The act of writing itself imposes discipline. And styles have evolved headings, gender-neutral language, less Latin. Though judges still disagree on things like footnotes, and there's that ongoing debate. Plain language versus more formal, traditional legal writing.
Are there ways to categorize styles?
Ferguson suggested things like the monologic voice, very certain, versus maybe a more interrogative or questioning style, or the rhetoric of inevitability, making the conclusion seem like the only possible one, contrasting maybe a personal exploratory style with a very formal technical one.
But it must be hard to maintain a purely personal style in a multi-judge court,
Mm.
especially with joint judgments.
Exactly. Institutional norms definitely shape individual expression.
Personal values. We assume judges try to be objective, but values must seep in sometimes.
It seems likely. Schwartz's model of human values, things like valuing tradition versus valuing change, or focusing on security versus self-direction, provides a way to think about
So
it.
you can see different values potentially pushing judges in different directions on a case.
Research suggests yes. Analyzing judgments, you can sometimes see expressions of values like universalism, equality, social justice, or maybe power emphasizing the court's authority.
And specific cases show this.
Cases like HML v. The Queen or Lee v. NSW Crime Commission have been analyzed, showing how different justices, perhaps driven by different underlying values, reach different conclusions. Panel composition really matters.
Okay, last big area, judges and the media. That relationship seems tricky.
Always has been, probably always will be. Historically, things like the UK's Kilmuir rules kept judges very quiet.
But that's changed.
Largely gone, yes. There's more acceptance that courts need to communicate. But interestingly, attorneys general seem less likely now to leap to the judiciary's defense if it's attacked publicly.
Why is that?
Maybe the AG role itself has become more political, less clear expectation that they're the judiciary's chief defender. It's debated.
So how are courts managing media now?
Many have media officers, issue press releases, stream hearings online for transparency. Codes of conduct now often include media guidance. The Judicial Conference of Australia sometimes weighs in on unfair reporting.
And some judges engage directly.
Occasionally, yes. Carefully. Chief Justice Warren used social media. Chief Justice Bathurst spoke about community awareness. But you also get judges criticizing other courts or judges in the media sometimes, like Hayden on delays, which drew a response. It's complex.
And how are judges portrayed in Aussie TV drama? Are they realistic?
Often. Not really. Frequently secondary characters, sometimes caricatures. There are exceptions, of course, reality court shows or dramas like Janet King or Rake that actually explore legal themes, maybe judicial impartiality, the messiness of facts and law. Sometimes you see the activist judge trope pop up too, like in Sea Change.
Right. Okay, that's a lot we've covered. So, summing up, what are the big takeaways for you from this deep dive?
For me, it's that interconnectedness. You can't understand the individual judge without the collective judiciary. And you can't understand either without the institutional context. It's all linked.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's clear the system faces real challenges: independence, diversity, technology. These are live issues.
Absolutely. And understanding these dynamics isn't just academic, is it? It's crucial for maintaining a system that people actually trust and respect.
Which leads us to a final thought, maybe something for you, our listener, to ponder.
As society changes, as technology marches on, how does the judiciary balance its traditions, its core principles, with the need to adapt? What does the future actually look like for the judge and the court in Australia?